very special guest, the friend of the show, Mr. Paul Hembekides. You may know him as Hembo if you see him on ESPN's Get Up in the Morning, as well as you write a couple books, don't you, man?
A few. We just released book number 3. It's called Got Your Legends. I didn't know that I was coming on here to plug product. But if you're going to give me the opportunity, I appreciate that very much. Our third book is called Got Your Legends. I wrote it with Mike Greenberg. We identified the Mount Rushmore for every single team across the 4 major sports. So maybe sometime this offseason when you and I can collect our breath and come up for air, we can go through some of the Mount Rushmores I chose for the 4 Philly teams, because those, as you might imagine, he deferred to my expertise on those. So that'll be something we can put a pin in and discuss another day.
Of course, appreciate it, man. But the Mount Rushmore, that the team that we're focused on today is the Titans, brother. And we got an NLDS matchup, with the Dodgers coming up this Saturday, 5-game series. Sanchez, Ohtani on the mound. I don't know if we'll have time to get into anything else today. The Birds are 4-0. We do want to talk about it, but this might be 30 straight minutes of Phillies baseball. Let me ask you this. Just jump right into it. What's your confidence level heading into Saturday's game?
Heading into Saturday's game, my confidence level is low because we're facing an absolute wagon. The Dodgers are going to throw Shohei Ohtani, who is the best player of his generation. Mm-hmm. And on the mound over the course of the last month or so, he's been dominant. He's been unhittable. And of course, at the plate, as their leadoff hitter, he has been marvelously good in the postseason, hitting 2 dingers in Game 1 against the Reds and a swing and a hot bat. You can't have a high degree of confidence when you play a team that good, no matter how good you feel about your own team in a best-of-5 context. Now, the Phillies have all of the attributes, all of the ingredients to take down the mighty Dodgers. They are more well-rounded. They're more balanced. Aside from the Zach Wheeler injury, of course, they are healthy, relatively speaking. And considering Trey Turner's coming back and we expect him to be an approximation of the player he was before, I'd say my confidence is as high as it could be. But when you're playing the most talented roster in baseball, one of the most expensive teams in baseball history, the defending champs, how can I sit here and say I'm confident? This is a series in which if the Phillies somehow, some way lose Game 1, and you got to win 3 of 4 games, 2 of which are going to be in Los Angeles, all of a sudden, in a best-of-5 context, you are swimming upstream, which is terribly unfortunate because I think over the course of a best-of-7, the Phillies would be much better equipped to beat the Dodgers than in a best-of-5 because their pitching situation is far better, especially in the bullpen. But in a best-of-5 series, I don't like using the term Game 1 unless it's an actual, must-win unless it's an actual elimination game. But you have to have that kind of sense of urgency if you're on that team, knowing full well that you've got fewer bites at the apple in a best-of-5.
Yeah, I think you saw that last year, right? And obviously that's a different team. That's the Mets, not the defending champs with the MVP and everything like you mentioned. But we saw them have a 1-0 lead going into the top of the 8th, top of the 9th inning, whatever it was, and then rip our hearts out. And they just obviously recovered in a cool walk-off way in Game 2, but it just wasn't enough when you're going on the road in basically a best-of-3 at that point. You need at least one on the road to get you back home, right? So it's going to be tough. It feels like this series has been long awaited, right? Like ever since we started our postseason run in 22, they get knocked out by the Dodgers. And then in 23, we get the Diamondbacks because the Dodgers can't do it, right? And then last year we would have got them, but the Mets take us down. We finally get to this point. It is the defending champs. It's the probable league. It's the probable MVP. He's their starter. He's their leadoff hitter. When you do look at these two teams, is it as simple for Phillies fans to look at the bullpen, point at that Dodgers bullpen, point at the Phillies bullpen, what they did at the deadline with Duran, and is that the biggest difference maker in which can give them the confidence to take down the defending champs?
Yeah, look, you're a ball knower. You hit the nail right on the head. This is, look, there are any number of, the series will be decided by a large number of outputs, right? You can't point to one thing and say, this is going to be the reason. But if you're going to construct a list of the likeliest reasons why the Phillies win or lose this series, the Dodgers bullpen is number 1 on that list for me. Number 1.
Right.
Not only has it not been a group that has been remotely reliable from the perspective of just 8th and 9th innings, game on the line, do you trust anybody? But in a playoff context, as you well know, you're going to have to bridge that gap from starter to back end much more so than you do over the course of 162. And the Dodgers are not equipped to do that in the slightest. They have very little confidence in most anyone in that group right now. We'll go through it. So Blake Trinan has had a very trying season. He looked good against Cincinnati, but it's stuff that plays, as we know. Yeah. But he's been very easily knocked off his rocker this season. They're going to use Roki Sasaki out of the bullpen, and the stuff is diabolical. But he only throws 2 pitches, and he sprays it like a paintball gun. Clayton Kershaw is one of the least reliable postseason performers in recent memory, and that's coming from someone who believes he's the best left-handed pitcher of this century. But ultimately, Clayton Kershaw's body of work in the playoffs speaks for itself. And coming out of the bullpen, he's not someone that I fear, and he's someone that Dave Roberts is going to worry about in that context. And the list goes on and on and on. If you ask me, like
Tanner Scott's been a mess since coming over.
Terrible. They gave that guy $70 million to bleep the bed every other game, it seems like. They have had a Dave Roberts has done an unsatisfactory job with that group this season. And that is not necessarily blaming him, because he can't go out there and get the outs for him. It goes without saying. But Dave Roberts has a long and storied history of pushing the wrong buttons in a playoff setting. He has mismanaged his bullpens more times than he would like to admit, certainly. This team's won 2 championships, and this is a team over the last 10 years that's had the best team far more often than not. And so, as a Phillies fan, I obviously take great comfort knowing that they have this kind of speckled history in terms of doing this. And if the Dodgers are going to win this series, it's going to be in spite of their bullpen. It's going to be because they banged, and it's going to be because they got length from their starting pitchers. And while both of those things are likely, or at least possible, being able to do both, being able to make sure you get 18 out to start and average 5 runs a game against this Phillies team, that's a really high bar to clear. I don't doubt that the Dodgers can score runs or get length out of their starters, but the likelihood that they can do both against a team that is their equal, candidly, is a difficult mountain for them to climb.
Yeah, and not that Cincinnati, that 2-game Cincinnati stint was close by any stretch, but it's just funny, as you saw, like, what was it, 8-2 in game 1 or whatever, or 10, and then 10-2 or whatever it was at some point, and then the bullpen comes in the game, and Cincinnati's down 4 with the bases loaded in the 8th inning, and then game 2, Cincinnati rallies a little bit against the bullpen. It's like, not that those were high leverage spots, but it's like, just to see that. And then, so let me follow this up, right? You mentioned Dave Roberts pushing the right buttons, having short leashes in the postseason. The last time we saw Shohei Ohtani throw against this Phillies lineup was in Los Angeles a few weeks ago. Through 5 or into 5, we were being shut out, and was it no hit or 1 hit at that point? And then you saw the Phillies get to the Dodgers bullpen. Coming off of that injury, game 1, do you think he's on a short leash still? Like, do you think Ohtani's limit is 6 innings or anything in that ballpark? Or since it's the postseason, if his pitch count's manageable, is he being pushed to shove?
So Shohei Ohtani is the only person in baseball that makes those decisions for himself. Shohei Ohtani will come out of that game when he decides he's ready. And I'm not disparaging Dave Roberts and the power that he has over there, or the front office for constructing their plan, as every team does before every single playoff game. But Shohei Ohtani is built up for this moment. Shohei Ohtani's entire recovery from his second elbow reconstruction has been leading towards what we're going to see tomorrow night at the bank. That's a remarkable thing to consider. This is the best player of a generation. This is a player who is as unique as any that has ever come before us in the history of Major League Baseball. And Shohei Ohtani has reached a point now, with the manner in which he's been able to build up his stamina over the course of the second half of the season, to where he can empty the bucket and give you 80 or 85 or 90 pitches and do it in a dominant fashion. I could imagine a scenario in which they let him empty the clip and go 6 innings. That's very much on the list of options, especially considering, as you've identified, their bullpen is in shambles. They have no choice but to allow Shohei Ohtani to be a full-fledged, full-throated starter. And I expect him to do that. To me, it's not the quality of his performance in game 1. It's not something that, if I were a Dodger fan, I'd be that worried about. His stuff plays in a playoff setting, especially. He's going to induce a ton of swing and miss. I think he's going to do a decent job of limiting the walks, and the Phillies are going to have a tough time generating runs. If they score against him, it's probably going to be because they pop a homer. I think the most important thing for the Phillies lineup in that game is not necessarily to get to him as much as it is to get him out of the game as early as possible. I'm less concerned about driving in runs early in that ball game than I am about getting him out of it. Because if they can require that Dodger bullpen to canvas, say, 15 outs, the Phillies are going to win game 1. The Phillies are going to win game 1.
Even 12, man. Even them needing 12 outs. Like, and that's the question, like the approach, right? Because if you're, like you said, if the approach should be getting him out of the ball game, you're looking at pitch count, right? More so than trying to drive him out, like, by scoring a ton. So that's taking pitches. And then do you balance that with getting in a hole with a guy that has stuff like his where he can just bury you instead of trying to attack early, right? So it's going to be interesting to see the plate approach, because it's been one of the biggest question marks of Kevin Long and this Phillies lineup the last 2-3 playoff runs. It has been plate approach and chase rate, etc. So it'll be interesting to see that battle and that chess match between the two managers. But look, we talked a lot about the other general manager and that team and what they can do wrong and what they can do right. Let's focus in. Let's look at us, right? And I'll start with Rob Thomson, because I think Rob Thomson has been absolutely phenomenal this entire season. He just continues to push the right buttons. We know Rob Thomson loves his platoons in a playoff setting. He's been much better with it this season. Harrison Bader, seemingly heading into the postseason, is set in stone in center field. I would hope that Brandon Marsh is your left fielder. I don't need to see Weston Wilson playing left field in a playoff game, Hembo. All right, right field, Costi, Kepler. You want to platoon left, right? I'm fine with that. See what happens. There's one platoon I'm interested in. Do you think he platoons Bryson Stott and Edmundo Sosa?
I don't think so. I don't think he's going to.
No, you think he gives Stott the full go?
And that's not something that I necessarily agree with, given how well that Bryson Stott, though, has swung the bat the last, we'll call it 2 to 3 months of the season, and the fact that he plays such a solid defense at that position, and the fact that we know he operates with a slow heartbeat and has had huge postseason moments, none more acutely than when you and I were in the building against the Braves in Game 3 of the DS in 2022. That was one of the great moments of my sporting fandom, and Bryson Stott was locked in then, and he's locked in right now. My best guess is that the Phillies are going to platoon heavy in the outfield, and the addition of Harrison Bader has been a godsend. Look, I don't think this is hyperbole to say that Bader has been as transformative to this team as Duran has been. Not necessarily in terms of impact, because no one would say that being able to compress the games to 8 innings because you feel so good about your 9th inning guy isn't extraordinarily valuable. Of course it is. But Harrison Bader has provided Rob Thomson the opportunity to improve his lineup and his defense in ways that you would never have been able to absent that addition. And he was obviously not the headliner of that trade. And Harrison Bader traditionally has been kind of a punch and Judy hitter at the plate who can go get it in center field. He's mashing, and he's mashing both sides of the platoon. So he is absolutely an X factor in the series, and someone whom I want to see play every single inning. Yeah, and we can figure out the corners based on the matchups, based on the platoons. And right now I have a very high degree of confidence in Rob Thomson doing that. I think he's going to nail the lineup side of things. I do. It's the bullpen. It's the way in which he manages his bullpen, specifically how much leash, how much length he is willing to provide his starter the third time through the order. Because there have been cases in which he has pushed the right buttons historically in the postseason and gotten that starter out earlier than we may have thought or hoped or expected. And it's worked. Like bringing in Jose Alvarado to face Jordan Alvarez, who hit the nuke of all nukes in the World Series, and I will never forgive Rob Thomson for that moment until he's finally holding that commissioner's trophy. There are any number of examples, of course, in the postseason last year where the bullpen against the Mets was nearly not good enough. And so the Phillies' biggest strength, even absent Zach Wheeler, is the fact that they have these trustworthy starters. So few teams can say that this time of year. And so I would hope that Rob Thomson has all the numbers in front of him, which he obviously should, while operating with a good feel for the game and what Christopher Sanchez and Luzardo and Suarez and maybe even Aaron Nola, how they're feeling, how they're looking that third time through the order. That's the bridge. To me, those are the most important outs of this series for the Phillies. What happens the third time through the order when you're bridging the gap from that starting pitcher who we feel good about to our bridge guys in the bullpen who we feel much less good about.
Yeah, and they've had the success all year long, right? Like Christopher Sanchez has gone 7 into the 8th so many times this season. Like just give him the leash, Topper. Just trust him to go out there and continue to do the job. But I got a couple piggyback questions off that. Let's start with the Harrison Bader edition, because you mentioned it being just as important as the Johan Duran edition for the Phillies themselves. Harrison Bader has been one of the most important deadline moves of any team this season for my money. So when you look at that, when you look at how he was producing in the leadoff spot, and now the NL batting champ has returned and he's taking his rightful spot in the leadoff spot, where would you like to see Harrison Bader slotted 2 through 9?
Probably 5th. The reason I like him in that capacity is because once you get through your bangers, your heavy hitters, I do like the opportunity to to reset the lineup to some extent with someone that can run but also has some juice. I don't want Harrison Bader hitting 7th or 8th because I think the bat's too potent, because he has not only the ability to drive the ball out of the ballpark, especially at the bank, but he can run like the wind. I mean, Harrison Bader can really, like, he provides you the opportunity to effectively restart your lineup once you get through the bangers. And so I don't want him buried deep in the lineup. What I want is to be able to stack it in such a way where you're going to get more at-bats than some of the guys that I feel a little bit less, putting him smack dab in the middle, provide you the chance to reset that lineup. Because as you mentioned, he has demonstrated the ability to lead off effectively. But the way that teams build their bullpens now, look, you know this stuff. You watch the Phillies play every night. You talk to people around the game. They build their lineups almost like pods. They build their lineup in such a way where you're not necessarily just stacking your best guys 1 through 9 or some combination thereof. You're trying to manipulate your lineup based upon probabilities that happen beforehand. So if you get lucky enough and Bryce or Schwarber hit a bomb, what's then happening, right? And the idea that Harrison Bader could be coming up in a context to restart the lineup, or God forbid Bryce or Schwarber strike out to end an inning, you feel awfully good about him leading off the next one.
It's a great point.
I want to hit and back down.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about 4, because as of right now, I would assume that's Alec Boehm's role. And Boehm has been swinging a very good bat since coming back from the injury. I just have this recurring nightmare of seeing Alec Boehm as a cleanup hitter in the Diamondback series and last year. And look, I don't even know if the traditional cleanup hitter exists anymore, right? Like the Ryan Howards hitting 4 anymore aren't the thing, right? But basically what it comes down to for me is trust at the plate, right? Like 2 outs and Bryce and Schwarber get on, or Trey and Schwarber get on, and there's 2 outs in the inning. Who do you trust more at the plate? And I know Boehm's been very good, but not only do I trust Bader at the plate more in that situation, he does hit for more pop than Alec Boehm does driving the baseball. So that's the only reason I was throwing 4 out there. 5 I'm fine with. Look, people love the speed at the back end of the lineup. You already have that with a guy like Bryson Stott, who's going to be hitting 9th. Brandon Marsh, if he's buried, hitting 7th or 8th. Like, you're going to have speed to set the table at the bottom end of this lineup, in a sense, for the top guys. So I don't need to bury Harrison Bader all the way down there and have Nick Castellanos mentioned.
Yes, that's a well-made point. The reason I think that I feel at least somewhat comfortable with Alec Boehm hitting 4 is twofold. Yes, I have the same muscle memory as you. That's reflexive when thinking about previous performances. But I think as fans, we need to remember that that's not predictive. Right. What he's doing right now is far more likely to rhyme with what he looks like in this series than anything that happened in previous years for a million obvious reasons. The other reason why I like him in that context is because he does hit the ball hard. He hits line drives, and he doesn't whiff so much so that I'm worried about empty at-bats. Like, Alec Boehm doesn't have – he's never going to lift the ball the way that we thought he might or could and be a 30 or 35 home run threat. But I do trust him to put together a good aggressive at-bat and hit a baseball hard. What I worry about in his case, of course, is grounding into the double play. Like, sometimes he gets he takes such feeble swings with 2 strikes. Yeah, you'd rather give away 2 outs than 1. And I don't want that. Staying out of the double play in this series is going to be critical for him and for Castellanos if he gets up in those situations, because sometimes weak contact is worse than no contact. Yeah, I don't want that at all. But I would say I have a higher degree of confidence right now in Alec Boehm that I've had in any time entering the postseason during his career. I don't necessarily know that he's about to, scorch the earth. I do know that he's seeing it well, driving the baseball pole to pole as effectively as he has had recently, and thus hitting him clean up is something that I feel, relatively speaking, good about. Yeah,
it's here, bro. Like, just stay mentally locked in if you're him, because you mentioned the double plays, and I'm dreaming about it right now. Jogging down the first base line, taking the helmet off, throwing it on the ground, inning over, undoing the wristband. I don't need to see it. Stay locked in. You'll get another chance. The other piggyback question I had for you was with the starters. And, we have no idea how Topper's going to handle that. Hopefully he does allow the guys like Granger, like Christopher, to extend their leash if they're feeling good. The question is, who's following that, right? And are you comfortable at this point? Like, just throw your best guys, throw who's pitching the best as of right now. Are you comfortable with throwing the 3 straight lefties? Is Luzardo the third guy? And if so, does Aaron Nola even belong on the NLDS roster in a 5-game
Yes,
series?
Aaron Nola does belong on a DS roster in this setting, but I wouldn't trust him to navigate the order more than twice, certainly, and perhaps more than once. Aaron Nola, one time through the order this season, has been nails, and that's all you might need from him. But what I want to avoid is the whole, like, you know how it goes. When Aaron Nola's throwing the ball well, it feels like the snowball's rolling downhill. He's getting ahead of hitters. He's locating that two-seam fastball to his glove side, and he's spiking that knuckle curveball really effectively. And so it can be really easy to be coaxed into, oh, he's got it today. But Aaron Nola, correct. And that's when the 3-run home run changes the complexion of the game. That's the 3-run home run that cannot happen. So if Aaron Nola is going to get meaningful innings in this postseason series, which I expect, what I need is Rob Thomson to understand the assignment. He is not someone that you trust being able to navigate the order through multiple times. He's someone that you trust to go get your 3 innings. You go win those reps. But what I don't want is Aaron Nola facing Shohei Ohtani for the 3rd time and hitting the ball off the McDonald's sign. That's something that I'm willing to deal with. The question that I want to ask you is, who do we see start games 2 and 3?
So I had that down for you, right?
To me, who starts game 2 in the series is one of the most fascinating subplots for the Phillies as it relates to their likelihood of winning, because we know there is an enormous advantage, qualitatively at least, pitching in this zoo in a postseason context. Who's best equipped to do that versus who's best equipped to starting game 3 in Dodger Stadium? That is a fascinating subplot to this series. So if I were to make you the manager of this club, based upon the data that we have, and based upon the feel that you have, having seen these guys sink or swim in the playoffs, who's starting game 2 for you at Citizens Bank Park on Monday?
It's Jesus Luzardo. I want Ranger Suarez on the road. We know that heartbeat. We know the calm, cool, collective presence he brings. I'll throw him out there game 3 in Dodger Stadium. I think that's the way I'm looking at it more. Less so than who do I trust in game 2 to go up 2-0 to Dodger Stadium. Maybe that's the wrong way to look at it. And you got to take one game at a time. Don't be looking ahead. But I trust Ranger Suarez the most on the road in that scenario, whether it's 1-1 or 2-0 to bury them. Game 2, I'm going with Luzardo more so than the opener, as you mentioned, in Nola. We have had success with playoff Nola. The game 3 you were alluding to earlier against Spencer Strider, Aaron Nola was nails in that ball game for the Phillies, right? We've had the playoff moments. You could see it in the bank. Game 2, up 1-0, Nola gives you 4 innings of successful baseball. But I keep going back very long ago. I know the ERA is inflated for Jesus Luzardo. I know he gave up like 23 runs in those 2 games back in the spring, right? But I go back to that Friday night baseball game on Apple TV against the Los Angeles Dodgers, where what do you go, 7?
I actually couldn't remember my password. I missed the game. I had to catch the condensed game afterwards. The stupid. Anyway, maybe they'll hire me someday, and I'll be like, you know what? Yeah. I love the fact that Apple gets the weekly game. Every time the Phillies play on Apple, I have to go back into my phone and figure out who for my family's paying for it. But I digress.
I think they're done, or I feel like Apple's done calling games, unless I read something different. But no, I have that, and he just pitched in Dodger Stadium. Look, 6 hits, 4 earned, a walk. It wasn't the most effective start. He went 7 innings, and I believe, if I remember correctly, some of those 4 came early on in this game and put the Phillies down in a hole, and then he continued to shove. I just trust Jesus Luzardo much more than I would trust Aaron Nola to go out and get me into 5, 6, 7 innings. And then obviously, like I said, I'm basing this off of putting Ranger out there in Dodger Stadium game 3.
Yeah. This is another demonstration of you knowing ball. So I want to take you behind the curtain here for a moment and demonstrate not just why Jesus Luzardo should be starting game 2 based upon your level of confidence in him, which I share, but he's also the last pitcher on this club that I want starting on the road, especially in Dodger Stadium. And I'll tell you exactly why. So you probably know that most, if not all, teams across Major League Baseball have an army of people that look like me in their front office whose job it is to identify pitch tipping. And that happens primarily through the Kinetrax technology that they have in the stadium, which identifies every single movement by every single player at all times. And then in your home ballpark, when you have the opportunity to have those cameras situated exactly as you want them and be able to feed information in real time, you have the opportunity, naturally, to make in-game adjustments, not just stuff that you've seen on the scouting report,
right,
but if X, Y, or Z pitcher is tipping tonight, by the time you see him for the second time, you don't have to wait to the next game. The reason I bring this up is because Jesus Luzardo, for as good as he is, has as big a tipping problem as any pitcher of his caliber in Major League Baseball. And the Dodgers are as good at home hitting as any team in Major League Baseball. And the differential between their home and road OPS is an absolute chasm. I'm not suggesting they're doing anything nefarious. What I am saying is that the Dodgers are a wagon at home. And my suspicion is that it is in large part, or at least in part, because they know what's coming. Because their tipping people have the ability in real time to be able to relay that information. Legal or illegal. That's not what I'm trying to do here, is adjudicate any of this. I'm not suggesting they're doing anything not above board. What I am saying is that as one who studies these things and looks at these numbers, when your home road splits are that wonky, there has to be something to it. And my best guess, based on the conviction of some of their swings, especially that we saw against Cincinnati, is that they have a really, really nice home-cooked meal ready for them every single game at Dodger Stadium. I don't want Jesus Luzardo's stuff being compromised by someone who makes $45,000 a year that looks like me, being able to get that information to their guys in real time. I don't want that. And so all this to say, Jesus Luzardo's stuff and the way in which it's going to play up is best equipped for Game 2. What I want in Game 3 in Los Angeles is probably a Nola one time through the order, Suarez 2 times through the order piggyback, which puts both of those guys in position to succeed. That, if I were pushing the buttons, would be, I think, their clearest path to finding a way to steal Game 3 on the road in Los Angeles.
So then the dates are what? Who would go in Game 4 for you then if it got to a Game 4? Is it Sanchez time already? Or
yeah, because it's only 4 days because we get the off day. The way that the National League stacks this year, mercifully for the Phillies without Zach Wheeler, is that you don't need a fourth starter until Game 6 of the CS. And if we get that far, candidly, all bets are off. So that's why I view Game 3 at Dodger Stadium as being sort of an all hands on deck kind of game. And if Aaron Nola starts it and he goes and gets those guys out one time through, and Ranger Suarez is basically in the bullpen getting hot immediately, both of those guys are then in their sweet place, their happy zone, right? That they're both in that position, exceedingly well equipped to go shove against the Dodgers.
Isn't it crazy, man? A few months ago, the Zach Wheeler news broke that the season was over and the surgery was coming, and it felt like that's it. Like you can't lose a player of that caliber. You can't lose arguably a top 3 pitcher in baseball right now and expect to go contend for a World Series. And not only has everyone stepped up to the plate and the bullpen has been much better, Christopher Sanchez has seemingly just turned into a top 5 to 7 pitcher in Major League Baseball. So I'm excited for tomorrow night and to see what he does in that debut, man. Give me before we get to predictions, I know we only got a few more minutes left.
You're good.
Give me your biggest X factor and series MVP. They could be one and the same. But like X factor could be like Rob Thompson, you know what I'm saying? So like give me an X factor / MVP for the series.
The biggest X factor for the Phillies in this series is the middle relievers, the 5th and 6th innings. If the Phillies find themselves in a precarious position in the 5th and 6th innings, it's where all of this could go to hell in a handbasket. And the same goes for the Dodgers in some sense.
Right.
But the Phillies' 5th and 6th innings, if they don't have the luxury of Sanchez and Luzardo and Suarez and or Nola navigating the order successfully that deep into the game, I think they could be in real trouble, because the Dodgers are a team that can absolutely capitalize on seeing your 5th best reliever in the 5th inning. And if you're down 3-1 in the 5th inning and you're going to your bullpen, that's a terrible place to be.
Yeah.
I don't feel all that confident in what the Phillies can put forth from a bullpen standpoint until the 7th inning. And these are comparable lineups. I mean, their strengths and weaknesses are very similar. The biggest difference, of course, is that the Phillies have the best closer in baseball, or at least one of them, in the 9th inning, whereas the Dodgers don't have that. So I suppose you could answer this question the same way on both sides. But the X factor for me in this series is what happens in middle relief in the 5th or 6th innings, which is why I feel the 3rd time through the order to circle it all the way back is absolutely pivotal. So that to me is the X factor. You asked me for the MVP of the series, and I feel confident in telling you that it's going to be Bryce Harper. And the reason I feel confident in telling you that it's going to be Bryce Harper is, even though he's not had the season of his dreams, even though he's not been MV3 this year, Bryce Harper, it is not hyperbole to say, has been one of the best postseason performers of his generation. Bryce Harper was put on this earth for games like tomorrow night at Citizens Bank Park, and he relishes it. He loves it. He wraps his arms around it. Bryce Harper is one of these few guys who was just touched by the gods from an early age, and he knew he was going to be a Major League Baseball player. And he wasn't able to win one postseason series in Washington as a member of the Nationals, elects to spend the next 13 years of his career in Philadelphia, and has done nothing but mash baseballs once we get to October. He is so unique. He is so different. He is wired. He is supercharged for moments like these. And even though Bryce Harper is not having, like I mentioned, like he's not entering October with the kind of slash line that suggests that
he's not hitting 293 this year, 35 home runs.
He is still seeing the ball well enough and driving it effectively enough to the opposite field that I do think that there's going to be so much attention paid to Kyle Schwarber and ensuring he doesn't beat them. But I think there's going to be a lot of times in which Kyle Schwarber is coming up to the plate with nobody on because Bryce Harper is going to clear the decks. I think that there is a meaningful chance that the world is reminded in this division series between these two heavyweight teams that Bryce Harper, oh, by the way, is one of the great players of the 21st century and perhaps the greatest postseason performer of anybody in the game today.
He just delivers, man. Just delivers. So we'll see. Give me your game one predictions and then give me your series predictions and take me all the way. If there's a roadmap to the World Series, Hembo, if not this year, when? What's it look like the rest of October for the Phillies?
The Phillies are going to win game one on the back of Christopher Sanchez, who is going to outduel Shohei Ohtani in this game. Maybe they don't put up terribly different numbers from the perspective of run prevention. I could see this game being tied into the 6th and 7th innings, but I do expect Christopher Sanchez to provide more length. Let's keep in mind, Will Smith is an absolute dog for the Dodgers and is hurt. That's a huge thing. Imagine if the Phillies were without their 3rd best hitter, their 4th best hitter in this series. It would make an enormous difference. And obviously, a righty against Christopher Sanchez would make an even bigger difference against all the Phillies starters. So Will Smith being absent helps the Phillies a lot. It's not being discussed nearly enough. Christopher Sanchez is going to go out there and get 18 plus outs and be really good because it doesn't matter if you know if it's coming or not. The changeup is one of the best pitches on earth. I think he's going to shove. And even though I expect Shohei Ohtani to perform admirably, I think he's only going to get 15 outs because the Phillies, I expect
beautiful
to foul off a bunch of pitches. The Phillies to be able to get to that bullpen in the 6th inning. So I don't think this game is going to be high scoring at all. This is going to be a series that's going to be such that by the time you get to the end of it, that's when the runs are going to come. If you look at the way that these postseason series typically shake out, the longer they go, the more the offense matters. But in a game one phone booth, this is a 1-1 game in the 7th inning. I think the Phillies are likelier to get to the Dodgers bullpen naturally than we are. Ultimately, I have Phillies in 5. The Phillies are going to win this series, but it's going to be a rock fight at the end. These are the 2 best teams in baseball. The winner of this series is going to win the World Series. That's how I view the likeliest scenario here playing out, because whomever wins is going to be favored over the Brewers or the Cubs and is likely to be favored over whom I believe is likely to be the Mariners or the Yankees, but whomever comes out. These are the 2 best teams. Vegas knows this. You and I know this, and they're going to beat each other up over the next 5 games. Phillies in 5 is my pick because I can't imagine a likely scenario in which it doesn't go the distance because they can both do like the same things really, really well. The biggest X factor for me is the fact that once you get to the 8th and 9th innings, we feel good about what we have, and they don't feel good about what they have.
I don't know if my heart or my stomach can take a game 5 at the bank next Saturday, but we'll find out, I guess. I love it nonetheless, dude. I got Phillies over Seattle in the World Series. The only thing I don't like is I feel like that's seemingly a pretty popular pick amongst people I've seen on video. So I've got
the Phillies over the Yankees. That's what I had at the beginning. That's what I have after last night. That's
Schlittler?
Cam Schlittler was a dog last night. I mean, look, the 2009 World Series is one that I'll always believe that we should have won. It's one in which I always have felt that if Charlie Manuel better managed the regular season and Bradley just foibles, the Phillies would have had a much better chance. I want to exact revenge. And even though, like some people in my life, as were likely in you, were rooting for the Reds, so we didn't have to face the Dodgers. What I told my buddies was, this is what I want. This is what I've always wanted. If I'm going to, as a sports fan, aim for maximum satisfaction, slaying the Dodgers and potentially slaying the Yankees in the World Series, that, my friends, is the sweet spot.
That's it, rather than a Seattle team that has no World Series rings to their cabinet. But guys, thank you so much for tuning in on YouTube. If you're going to tomorrow afternoon, Hembo, appreciate you for coming on, man. Again, one last time, tell the people where they can find you and obviously find all 3 of your books.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter, on Instagram at Paul Hembo. I have co-authored 3 books with Mike Greenberg. Got Your Number, Got Your Answers, and Got Your Legends. If you're a fan of content like this, well, you're probably going to enjoy those books. And we have, as a quick aside, it's been really encouraging. It's been really flattering to hear from people saying like how much in particular, like my dad loved it, my brother loved it, the
That's
kind of
awesome.
thing that you're gifting for people, sports fans in your life. Look, you and I talk ball because we love this. I mean, you and I have talked about so few things in life other than ball, but when the Phillies are playing in October, it feels like all of a sudden, all these people in my life, all these friends of mine, all of a sudden, like my group text, like it's hard to describe it. I'm not doing a great job of articulating it, but when you know and love this stuff, the way that you and I know and love this stuff, there's nothing like it. And that's why I expect the next month of our lives to be so much fun. Look, it could be over in 3 games, but I'm not expecting it. This team's just built a little bit different. And even though we don't have Zach Wheeler, don't forget, this is the same city that had a Super Bowl championship on the back of Nick Foles. So we are more than ready, more than equipped to be the underdog.
Never out. I appreciate it so much, guys. Me and Scotty will be back Monday, and hopefully Hembo will be joining us in the coming weeks talking a Phillies postseason run. Peace out and go.